Annyeonghaseyo, Chingus. Welcome to this political, historical, and sociological channel. Today, I want to share with you about the protests and strikes against an unpopular pension reform began again Tuesday across France. Amid heavy security measures over fears of violence and government warnings that radical protesters intended to destroy, harm, and fears that violence could mar the marches prompted what Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin described as an unprecedented deployment of 13,000 agents, nearly half of them concentrated in the French capital. The police, "We do not forgive," reached the sank of protesters in France. Protests and strikes against unpopular pension reform began again Tuesday across France amid heavy security measures over fears of violence and warnings that radical protesters intend to destroy, hurt, and fears that violence could mar the marches prompted what Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin described. Protests began peacefully across the country. In Paris, dozens of rail workers with flags and flares invaded and blocked the tracks leading to one of the city's main stations, Gare de Lyon. But police were preparing for violent marches later. The Interior Minister said more than 1,000 radicals, some arriving from abroad, could take advantage of planned demonstrations in Paris and elsewhere. They come to destroy, hurt, and kill officers and gendarmes. Their objectives have nothing to do with the pension reform. Their goals are to destabilize our republican institutions and bring institutions blood and fire on France, the minister said Monday in presenting the police measures. Union leaders and political rivals of the President Emmanuel Macron blame his government for violence at protests in recent weeks, claiming that it is his pension reform that is causing it. Critics also allege that police use excessive force against protesters. A police watchdog is investigating several allegations of police misconduct. Striking workers at Gare de Lyon marched with a banner reading "Those maimed by the police, we do not forget." The new wave of protest is the 10th around actions called since January by unions against Macron's initiative to raise the legal retirement age in France from 62 to 64 years old. Macron, who failed to win a majority for the unpopular measures in the lower house of Parliament, pushed through his approval by employing a special power guaranteed to him by the Constitution, stoking discontent among non-conformists. In Paris, tensions between protesters and police began as Crown approached its destination at Place of the Nation, east of the city center, and black-clad activists set fire to garbage cans, looted a Leclerc store, and damaged street furniture, local media reported. Police responded with batons and tear gas to dissolve the block, allow the intervention of firefighters, and facilitate the progress of the march. Pictures shared on social media show officers beating the fierce rows of demonstrators who responded by throwing stones and other objects. Several videos show men on the ground during the clashes, apparently after being assaulted by officers. At least 5 people were treated by emergency services and 3 injured, attended by volunteer recruiters. The General Confederation of Labor, CGT, estimates that in Paris alone the turnout was of 350,000 people, while Parisian authorities estimate some 93,000 people. At the end of the day, at least 70 arrests were reported in the city. Clashes also broke out in other cities including Rennes, Bordeaux, and Toulouse. In Toulouse, incidents also occurred after the police used a water cannon and tear gas against demonstrators wearing masks and goggles who allegedly started a fire on the road. President Emmanuel Macron reiterated this March 22 the implementation of the pension reform and assured that it will be done by the end of 2023. He also defended the continuity of Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne after the administration faced 2 motions of censure. There are not 100 solutions if we want the pension system to be balanced. It is no longer balanced, and the longer we wait, the worse it will get. And I say this to the French, I do not enjoy doing this. I would have preferred not to do it. But it is also out of a sense of responsibility that I express my commitment to do this in front of you, remarked the president. These declarations came during the president's first interview in the local television after his government endorsing the amendment of March 16 with the application of Article 49.3 of the Constitution, so that the initiative was extended for being submitted to a vote in the National Assembly, the lower house of Parliament, where the right wing does not have a majority. The head of state underlined that he made the decision to opt for the national interest over popularity. I am not wishing to be re-elected, he said. I cannot be re-elected as the Constitution says, but between the conjunctural elections and the general interest of the country, I choose the general interest. And if in the end I have to bear the unpopularity, I will bear it, he stressed. The executive defends that the measure is crucial to avoid the collapse of the state pension system and to ensure that younger populations do not take on the burden of financing the older generations. Because let's remember that the new generations don't want to have children. So it will be very difficult to have a pension. Macron stresses that it is about saving and preventing deficits in the coming decades. However, the reforms also aims to bring forward to 2027 the requirement to contribute 43 years to obtain a pension and not 42 years as the case until now. In addition, the text will eliminate the retirement privilege enjoyed by some public sector employees, such as Paris metro workers. But beyond this legislative initiative, the president also has at stake the possibility of implementing an essential part of his government program, which he promises to revive the finances of the European Union's second largest economy. Central plans for Macron in his second term after being re-elected last year. The challenges for the government are enormous. Its flagship project has been approved, but with a high political cost and the dissatisfaction of most of the citizens. According to several surveys, 2 out of 3 French people reject the pension reform. The president also assured that he respects citizens' demonstrations, but said that he will not tolerate violent acts. The president announced that he will ask his government team to work on a system that will establish an exceptional contribution from companies to their employees when they make large profits. In this regard, the president urged initiatives to improve the labor and wage situation of employees across the nation. The amendment is still being studied in the Constitutional Court after the extreme right-wing Paris National Aggregation (RM) filed an appeal before the Constitutional Council on Tuesday, March 21. The objective is that this text falls into the oblivion of history and is thrown in the trash, said Thomas Menech, spokesman for this party led by the former presidential candidate Marine Le Pen. But hadn't Macron tried to introduce changes to the pension system before? Yes, in 2019, during his first term, he presented a different plan aimed at unifying France's complex pension system. He argued that it was crucial to eliminate the 42 special regiments applicable for sectors ranging from railway and energy workers to lowers in order to maintain the financial sustainability of the system. At the time, he did not intend to increase the age required for retirement. Protests against such proposal lasted longer than any strike on record since the Wildcat workers' strikes of 1968. Macron's changes were ultimately shelved at the start of the contingency. Transportation, energy, longshoremen, teachers, and public sector workers, including museum staff, staged strikes. In addition, the garbage collection strike continues, which has resulted in the accumulation of more than 7,000 tons of waste distributed in half of Paris. The unions argue that the reform will penalize low-income manual workers, who usually start their careers early, and force them to work longer than graduates, who will be less affected by the changes. Opinions polls indicate that 2/3 of French people oppose pensions reform and support the protest movement. Unlike the UK's market-based system, France has a pension system priced for what politicians call solidarity between generations. By the working population pays social changes to fund retires. All French workers receive a state pension. France has the lowest minimum age for eligibility for a public pension of any major European economy and spends large sums to support the system. However, the working populations pay high social charges and considers fair pensions to be basis of how society should function. All French presidents over the last 40 years have changed pension laws in some way, which often provokes anger and the polls and demonstrations in the streets. The use of special powers reflects Macron's difficult position in parliament. He was left badly weakened in the National Assembly after his centrist group failed to win an absolute majority in parliamentary elections held last June. But there is a special individual pension plan that is not going to be abolished and which has been a hot topic in the French media. This is the retirement plan considered very generous for senators. After serving a 6-year term, senators receive a retirement pension of €2,200 per month net. But since most elected officials serve several terms, the average retirement pension is about €3,856 net. By comparison, deputies in the National Assembly, the lower houses of Parliament, can receive €685 net if they serve only for a 5-year term. That means that if they serve 2 terms, they are entitled to receive a pension of €1,368, the equivalent of what the rest of the population can receive if they have worked a full 40 years. As a reminder, the average pension in France is about €1,400 net. With politicians call on the union to continue to hold strikes and street protests. Opposition politicians will file a motion of censure against the government in the next 24 hours, leading to a vote perhaps as soon as Monday, whether it will pass or not. I would like to know in the comments what do you think about this, because in my own point of view, I think that they have a pension very young and the new generations doesn't like to have child, so it will be very difficult that all the young people gives these pensions to the old people by their work. But I also think that it's wrong for only a few months of work these politicians have a millionaire, well, not millionaire, but a very rich pension for only 5 months of work. It's totally corruption because they are public servants. The government is not a company that wants to get more wins in money terms. It is to serve people, and they are public servants. I think these two things need to change. They have to lower the payment of the politicians and the system of pensions, but I also think the people cannot stop working so young. I would like to know in the comments what do you think about this. If you like, I will love if you give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and share to get more content like this. Thank you very much and see you next time. Bye!